Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're going to delve more into the BRRRR method and talk about how to build your buy box. And stay tuned to the last tip because it can save you thousands of dollars. As you know, I'm Erica Parker, your queen of real estate with Real. Thank you for joining me. First, we want to identify our preference for investment property. Are we looking for a residential property or are we looking for a commercial property? Because it could become a big difference in who will fund your project. So you need to know if you're looking for 1 to 4 units in a property or 5 or more units. And that's the difference between residential and commercial properties. When you're adding value on a residential side, it's very different from how to add value on a commercial side, which has to do with net income. So you definitely want to start off by identifying if you want to do residential or commercial. Now, the second thing that you want to identify is your purchase collateral and what form you're going to be purchasing this property. And you don't always have to have the type ironed out right away, but you need to have certain people in your tool belt to call on when you find a property. So the first thing is your personal funds. You can tie up your personal funds in a property, and some people do this, and it's maybe a combination of your personal funds with private and hard money lending. So knowing how much you have in personal funds that you can tie up and you don't need for living expenses. The second one you might want to identify is a private money lender. They don't usually charge as much as a hard money lender, and they don't normally require draws or something along those lines. Now, a hard money lender is going to be more strict on their processes. They're going to have usually a certain interest rate plus points because the hard money lender is usually making those points. They usually are representing private money lenders, and so they're making the money off the points that they charge. And during that time, they also ask to do draws of whatever they've agreed to lend to you on the construction side. So the contractor will need to perform the work, then send in the proof of work, and then get a draw. And the hard money lenders do have specific things they like to lend on. So someone that's a hard money lender for residential isn't necessarily a hard money lender for commercial properties, which is why you want to identify the type of property that you want to invest in first. Just to give a shout out for the hard money lenders that I have used that have been amazing. I love Blink Lending. Give Paul Lamnatos a call. He is amazing, and they have been just great to work with as I've done fix and flips and buy and holds. And one thing that they do, which is really cool, is that they can also refinance your loans. Another one that I've used that's been really awesome as well is Financial Investment Partners, and that's Christy Linscomb, and give her a call because she's really awesome as well, and she's been very great to work with, and she has a lot of different lenders at her disposal that can help with a certain property, if it's new construction or if it's a commercial property or if it's a residential or if it's the BRRRR method. They have the whole loan process there for you, so they'll approve the hard money loan and what they believe the refinance is going to be, and usually can reduce some of the points that you have to pay. The last two are ones that you don't need as much money, if any. The first one is subject to. So you can take the property subject to the existing mortgage. Now that means that the mortgage actually stays in the name of the seller, but the property is deeded to you. Because a lot of times this is usually someone that is trying to get out of foreclosure or something along those lines. Then you may have to reinstate the loan, so there might be some out-of-pocket fees. But you can also convince certain people that have a lot of equity in their house to subject to and possibly seller finance. So that's the other one, is seller financing. If you're going the seller financing side, then I would probably recommend looking at probates where they have already been paid off. These have no mortgages on them, and people are just, they don't want to be a tenant and toilet landlord. They want to maybe make some money off of it because it was deeded to them in a will. And so maybe they'll seller finance it to you. So that's another option as well. The next one is actually developing your buying criteria, or your buy box is what you'll hear a lot of people say. Now the buy box starts with the type of property you're looking for. We did talk about residential versus commercial, but if you are looking for residential or commercial, you also need to know the number of units you're looking for. Are you looking for a single family home, or are you looking for a duplex, triplex, fourplex? That's all residential. Or are you looking for an apartment complex of 10 to 20 units? Or are you looking for something closer to 300 units? So those are things that you need to identify first starting off the bat, and how many beds and baths you're looking for in each property. So if you're looking in a single family home, usually people are looking for 3 to 4 bedroom and two bathrooms or more. That's usually what you look for in a single family home. But as you get into units and more units, you might look for a 2-1 or a 2-2, or maybe a 1-1 or a studio. All of those could work as you get into multiple family or multi-family units. The next thing you want to identify is your strategy for investment. Are you looking to cash flow or have high cash flow or passive income, or are you looking to get more appreciation for a property? Because that's going to help you identify certain locations. So you want to identify first if you're looking more for passive income and a higher cash flow, or if you're looking for appreciation, because that can be two very different locations. Such as higher cash flow might be more in a refinery area or a blue collar area where a lot more people rent, and an appreciation area might be something that is in the middle of Houston or the middle of a city that's being redone and new things are coming in, and it's got appreciation coming. So you buy kind of at a low or maybe mid-range and anticipate that it's going to have a quicker appreciation than some other areas. Third thing you want to identify is the level of rehab. So you've got a cosmetic rehab, which is going to be probably paint, carpet or other flooring, and maybe some cosmetic things on the walls, or maybe a countertop needs to be redone, something along those lines. The second level of rehab is having some upgrades or needing to replace an entire kitchen or replace an entire bathroom to upgrade it. And the last one is a complete gut job. That is a full rehab. That's moving plumbing, that is redoing the HVAC system, all of those big things, those big ticket items, the roof. That's going to be a full rehab versus maybe a cosmetic or a cosmetic plus a couple of upgrades. So you definitely want to identify what you're willing to do, because if you don't want to do foundation or roof or something like that, then you need to go ahead and take that off your list, so that if you're ever letting someone know, especially wholesalers, what your buying criteria is, they know not to send you ones that have to do with bigger rehabs. You need to identify your after repair value range that you're willing to buy in. So I particularly like to be a buyer in between the $200,000 to $450,000 range. That is where I'm comfortable with, and knowing that I'm going to get a return on investment based on my calculations. But that's the area that I'm comfortable in. So a lot of people are more comfortable in just the $150,000 to $300,000 range, or some people are willing to buy higher because they anticipate a higher appreciation or a greater appreciation. So they may be more in town or in Houston or in a city that is going to appreciate more. So they may be willing to buy at $450,000 or $500,000 and anticipate that it may gain $100,000 worth of appreciation in 4 to 5 years. The last one is actually identifying your purchase price or what you're comfortable with. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a number, but what it does have to do with is if your private money lender or your hard money lender will only lend a certain amount of the ARV, and you don't necessarily have enough funds to cover the rehab side of things. You need to have at least enough funds to cover holding costs that you plan to have and your closing costs that you plan to have. But you also want to identify what your lender is willing to lend at, what percentage of the ARV. So If you don't have a lot to cover the rehab, then a lot of times a hard money lender will lend at 70% of ARV. They'll sometimes only pay 90% of the purchase price and the buyer has to pay the other 10%, but they'll also pay 100% of the rehab. So you just need to know what the terms your lender and your private money lender have and what they're willing to lend on. Sometimes they don't care what you purchase it at, they're just willing to lend 70% of ARV if you can show that that's what you need to do the rehab. You've purchased it for this amount and you've done the rehab for this amount. An example is $300,000 is the ARV, then a hard money lender may only be willing to lend up to $210,000. But if you have a rehab that needs to be done, say it's a $30,000 rehab, then you have to get that purchase at $180,000. So $180,000 they'll lend plus the $30,000 in rehab. So then that equals $210,000, which is 70% of $300,000. So you definitely want to know what they're willing to lend on so that you can plan on what your buy box is. Another rule for purchase price that a lot of people are fond of or a lot of landlords are fond of, is the 1% rule, saying that the all-in price amount that you're in, so say you've got $210,000 in and that's what you're refinancing at is $210,000, then you want your income or your rental income to be 1% of that. So if it's $210,000, even if equity you have after your refinance, you've got $90,000 in equity, but the actual amount you owe is $210,000 after you've refinanced out, then you want to have at least a $2,100 rental possibility. That's what a lot of people like. It is not for everyone. It has to do with what your return on investment is and how much money you may have tied up in that property even after the refinance. Now, the final tip I want to give is something that a lot of hard money lenders don't necessarily allow, so it's always an important question to ask. And it's if they allow a second lien position. So if a hard money lender only allows you will only pay 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab, no matter if that's 70% of ARV or not, then that other 10% you may have to come up with and you may not have the funds. But here's the thing, that seller may be willing to do a seller financing for that other 10%. So here are the numbers again. $300,000 is the ARV, $210,000 is what the hard money lender is maximum willing to pay up to. So then you look at $30,000 being the rehab cost. So the purchase price needs to be $180,000. But if that hard money lender has a rule that you have to pay 10% of that $180,000, that's $18,000 that you may not have, plus all the interest and everything else. So if you need $18,000, that may be equity that the seller has. So it could be that you do a seller finance for the second lien position. And you do need to get this okayed with your hard money lender or your private money lender if they have a rule not allowing second lien positions. So you definitely want to find ones that do. And that way you don't have to come out of pocket $18,000 necessarily to fund that other 10%. You may get that seller to fund that other 10% and then pay them when you refinance out. I hope you found this information helpful in how to build your buy box. If so, give it a big thumbs up so others will see it, and go ahead and click that subscribe button so that you can see the next videos that are about to drop. The next one we have is the rehab video that is going to go into how to build your scope of work, how to hire a contractor and interview a contractor, build your pay schedule. Lots of good stuff, lots of great information. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.